craned my neck over, had a look at the screen, and there it was, what they call an amputated artery. Basically, nothing was going into the heart from the artery.
Wow.
And one at 98% occluded or blocked. So I'm going to recommend a coronary bypass and the full Rolls Royce thing for a quadruple bypass. So from never being ill, never being under the knife, suddenly I've got a quadruple bypass.
All right, folks, we are back in the Coachful Coaching Leadership podcast. This is Dave Fung, and I'm here with Dino Tartaglia. Dino, good morning, good afternoon. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning to you. I'm doing very, very well, thanks, Dave. Thank you.
You're in the UK today?
I am. Yeah, I'm back in the UK from Poland. I have a place over there, as well as Portugal. I'm going to sound like a proper jet setter here.
You are a jet setter.
I took my girlfriend. She'd never been to Poland before, so we were over there for a grand tour. We were going to 5 cities so she could get a real feel for the country. So just got back about a fortnight ago in the UK.
All right, let's get started. And Dino, I'll hand it over to you for a second just to introduce yourself and who you are and how you help others.
Sure, happy to. So Dino Tartaglia, as you said, I am a one half of a business called Success Engineers. I have 5 businesses in total I'm involved in. 4 of them are brick and mortar. One of them is a renewable energy solar firm, and we do a fair bit in the UK with that, and a little bit internationally. A lot of experience in shutting down businesses, starting businesses, helping startups, and just helping businesses and business owners get past problems and challenges that they've got that they themselves can't necessarily see the solutions to. Over many years, I've lived and worked in 23 countries on 5 continents over the many years I've been on the planet. And I'm, as I said, one half of the online business is Success Engineers, which I run with my dear friend and business partner, Simon Hartley. Simon is a world-class sports psych. Just finished working with the Fiji Rugby Sevens on their bid to get their 3rd Olympic gold. Narrowly missed it. France took them out, and convincingly so. He works in elite sport and elite business. So he takes a lot of what we call Olympic thinking and brings that into the mindset aspect of what we do at Success Engineers. And I kind of bring up the rear with business mechanics, critical thinking, because I'm kind of very big on that, helping people see things that they can't otherwise see and understand how business operates, because quite often they're fighting the principles and fighting the rules, and they don't even know.
Yeah. And it seems like what you and your partner do is you help businesses thrive. You help them grow. You help them make more money. But what I find really unique is you start with the mind. Like you're talking about your business partner is a psychologist, a sports psychologist. And you mentioned something about a character-led business the last time we chatted.
Yes.
And how you focus on character and the person in order to have a thriving business. You're like from the inside out is what I can tell. Can you talk a little bit about your approach there, the inside out character-led business approach that you take?
Yeah, very happy to. And thanks for bringing that up. So, we came up with CLB with the character-led business idea, which is a philosophy rather than a model. When we first started, Simon has written now, my God, I think 12 books, 13 books now. He's a fairly prolific author. One of them is fiction, the rest are nonfiction. And about the 3rd or 4th book that I read that Simon produced was called How to Develop Character. And we're very much very big on simplification. One of the things that you find with most entrepreneurs is they complexify things. And sometimes that's an ego thing. And sometimes it's just because we as humans were wired to complicate, because we are. We see value in more moving parts when in point of fact, simple is, Tina Turner almost said it right. Simple is best. Yeah. So we came up with the idea based on Simon's book, had a good chat with him. We came up with the idea that everything revolves around character. A character, just to give you the model that we use, we call it the identity ladder, is the outward expression of our identity, which in our parlance is how we see ourselves and how we see the world and how we relate to the world. And we think the world relates to us. So that's based on beliefs and values. If you go all the way up the identity ladder, eventually you end up at behaviors, outcomes. And my expression for this is that that mindset, which is moment-to-moment decision and making and thinking, mindset will drive behaviors, but character drives outcomes. So the pattern of behavior over time, the outcomes that creates, that's a character thing. And character is formed from characteristics or traits, whereas mindset is all about states. So we have an expression, traits before states. The traits will drive everything for the long term. The states will drive what happens in the moment. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so in your travels, trait before state, in your travels, how do you help people with that? Like how do you help them identify and understand the traits that they have, the
Great
state of
question.
mind that they're in order for them to start thriving?
Yeah, patterns of behavior. Again, back to that. So I just, and I sit, I'm quite patient. I've reached a time in my life where I understand the value of time, but also, we need a sense of urgency, but we shouldn't be in a rush at the same time. So I tend to slow things down. Yeah, the US Navy SEALs have got a great expression: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Yeah. So slow everything down. And so I'm very, very much about talking to people, getting an understanding over time of what is actually getting in their way, and invariably it's them. And I don't mean that in a bad way; they just don't know. So their thinking and their actions, and quite often that's just driven by tendency to procrastinate, to put things off, to avoid things. So there's avoidance that's going on, which quite often procrastination is anyway.
Yep.
A lack of consistency because they're just not consistent, which is a characteristic. Maybe they need a bit more courage. They're good people, they're good humans, they're brilliant at what they do, but they're afraid of putting the pricing up, for example, in case they lose all their clients. And there's no critical thought applied to that. They're just afraid, so they don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll sit with them, help them figure this stuff out more correctly, and then help them get on a path where they begin to just take a step towards the thing that's holding them back. So if they need a bit more courage, great. We don't have to quantum leap it. Let's say they rate themselves as a 4 out of 10 on the courage scale, but they don't have to go to a 10. They just have to go to a 5. So the question is, well, what would it take, Bob, to get you to a 5? Yeah, you're sitting at a 4, Jane. Why is it? Why is that not a 3? And why is it not a 5? What's kind of going on? Okay, what if you did this? How would this be? Is that practical? Yeah, actually, I could do that. Okay, try it. See what happens. Report it back. And before you know where you are, they come back and they said, actually, it was 6 now. I'm quite cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we just help them take baby steps towards the thing that's going to move them forwards once we've identified the characteristics that are needed. And sometimes that's just doing, because action organizes. Sometimes you get them to do stuff, and then the courage comes, and then the consistency starts to develop.
Yeah. What in your experience, what are the behaviors and traits and characteristics you've seen that hold people back?
Question. Only a lack of belief, self-belief, a lack of self-worth, a lack of perspicacity. So they just don't, or clarity, if you will. They just don't see what's going on with themselves or with the business. Lack of courage, a lack of consistency, so they don't show up. Fear of being judged. It's a mix of beliefs, conditions, and an environment, if you will, and characteristics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I consistently talk about on this podcast is that the barriers, but also how you start instituting change in one's life, and more importantly, like one of my last guests, we talked about creating a habit out of that change. So in your example, someone's at a 3, they want to get to a 4, and they want to get to 5. How do you start making things a habit, like the courage, for instance?
Yeah, good question. So we have a thing called Power of 7, and the Power of 7, P7, is about helping our guys effect a change in one thing over 7 days and then repeating the process. So instead of trying to do all the things like 75 hard, which is, as the name suggests, very, very hard and enormously difficult, because unless you're already at a level where you've got to sort of a third or fourth layer where you can start balancing a lot of things and spinning a lot of plates, you're destined for failure with 75 hard, in my view, in most cases. So you pick one thing that matters to you, really important. So it might be that you want to become more consistent, that you want to be a bit more courageous. or you just literally, and you apply a characteristic to this,
Yeah.
but you just want to be somebody who turns up at the gym more regularly, which is a consistency thing. Yeah? You want to be able to commit to something. So you pick one thing, and then instead of trying to quantum leap to step 3 or step 4 of that process, you start just by building step 1 and making sure it's solid before you then move to step 2. So you just do the thing for 7 days consistently. When you've locked it in, you do it for another 7 days. You've locked it
Mm-hmm.
in, you do it for another 7 days. And now we've got something that's beginning to form into something that you commit to and you can see yourself doing for all time if you need to.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
shouldn't, in my view, commit to something unless you're prepared to do it forever. And by that, I
Yeah.
don't mean that you're going to do it for eternity, but you don't see an end in sight. So it's not I'll do this for 3 months and I'll stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that, and then once you've locked down step 1, now we can build on to step 2, which might be another layer on top of that or a different characteristic. But you get the first thing nailed and get the platform in place, the foundation. Most people don't do that in habit change. So they get to step 3 without putting in step 2, bit of step 1, and the whole thing crumbles,
Yeah.
unsurprisingly. So very, very simple approach because we are simple men, but this is how we do it. And we
Yeah.
found that that's with working with elite athletes in particular. This is the process. This is what we observed. This is what we've helped, or Simon's helped them with more correctly. And we just parlay that into business because human beings, sports psychology is just human psychology applied on the pitch. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at the clients that you've had who are successful in making these changes,
Hmm.
what is it that you notice about them that is different?
We've reached the point where they're ready for change. I think that's really important. So there's a high desire to move. I have an analogy that I use, which is just imagine that you've got a bunch of 3 different types of people that all drop down a well. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
deep well, and right at the bottom, it's all very damp and very dank and very dark. You've got a you've got a particular type of individual who's sitting at the bottom of the well, looking down, and all they can smell is the damp, and all they can hear is their own voice in the echo, and all they can see is dark, and they're in despair, and they're going, I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people who are problem focused, right at the bottom of the well. Then you've got a bunch of people who are at the bottom of the well, but their knuckles are all kind of bloody and their nails are all fractured from trying to get out. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get out because they've looked up instead of looking down and they've seen the daylight and said, I want to be up there. So there's an aspiration and a desire. So they're the first type of person that we start working with. People
Mm-hmm.
who are problem focused, there's not a lot you can do for them. They're not ready.
Yeah.
So that's the key. And then there are the people who are kind of the people who want to be world class, if you like, which Simon deals with in a separate business called Be World Class. They're the people that don't even see the top of the well. They don't register that they're there. They just know that what the horizon looks like, and they want to get there because that's the edge of their potential. And they're already almost at the top of the well. They've found the way, and they
Yeah.
just need a little bit of help to get out of the well and get going. So they're the world class, potentially the world class people. But the people that we help at Success Engineers are the second group, and they just need a rope thrown down, basically, and a bit of help because
Yeah.
the desire is there, and they're at the point of readiness to change. And also, probably worth mentioning this, Dave. 3 things I look for: state of awareness, state of readiness, state of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got the awareness, great. A lot of people do this and they look like juicy clients because they're all very aware and they say the right things. And then they actually get their wallets out and there's a high state of readiness. You're, oh, fantastic. But because the state of commitment is low, they're actually going to bail. They don't have the capacity to extract the value from the usefulness of the thing that you're going to give them. And I think that's a really, really important point. So a lot of coaches I see will take somebody's money, and unwittingly, to be fair, that person isn't ready. So in terms of their level of commitment, so they bail. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I look for people in that category, that second group of people. I look for them to have high awareness, high readiness, and high commitment, and then we take
Yeah.
them on and we help.
Yeah. And it reminds me of there's a formula for change in a person. There's
Mm-hmm.
three elements that need to be true. Is that they got to have a strong dissatisfaction, they got to have a vision for the future, and a
Yeah.
willingness to change. That's got to be stronger than the resistance
Yeah.
that's keeping them in their current place. That's basically what you're talking about. That there.
Yeah. Pretty much.
We've talked about on this podcast too a lot about sometimes change is sparked by pain. So pain could be physical pain, it could be mental pain, it could be just something sparks that pain. And what one of the things I talked about with my last guest was, someone says, "Hey, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight." And it wasn't until someone said something on some day and it just hit this nerve and they said, "F it, I'm getting it done now."
Mm.
And it brings them over the hump. What is your take on the role of pain in order to have a desire to change?
Yeah, it's a powerful question. So I think the discomfort or the pain or being where you are has to be exceeded by, has to exceed the kind of level of comfort, if you like, of actually remaining there. So if you were in a situation where, like, and we've hopefully all been there, if we've kind of got out of corporate, a corporate environment where you're not appreciated and you're looked over and you're not paid enough, and you're traveling 3 hours to work and back every day, and not seeing your kids, and your life is just crap, and you want to get out of it. There comes a point where you go, you know what, I've just had enough, and again, the pain of that. So it's something comes up that just makes you think, I can't handle this anymore, and the discomfort that I have, and the concern that I have about uncertainty, which is a big issue for most people. Uncertainty of leaving the job, of stepping into the unknown, of starting to work for myself, because I think I can do a better job with this than the mob that I'm working for. That belief, if you like, that you can do it, that comfort with the uncertainty exceeds the comfort that you have in the uncomfortable situation or the painful situation of being in the job, and all the things that causes. So I think you've got to get to that point where there's a tipping point, and you see the possibilities for whatever the state that you're going to be in when you change invites, if you like, or brings to you, and the benefit of that versus where you are. And if you believe it, I think if you can internalize it and go, then you get exactly what that chap said, which is, sorry, I've had it. I'm doing this thing, and you hit that tipping point, if you like, and over you go. Until that point, you'll stay where you are, because the desire to change and the belief that it's possible, which is I think a key thing, is that.
Yeah.
There's an expression by Virginia Satir, who's the I think largely regarded as the mother of American lady, as the mother of family therapy, which is, I've got to get this right because I always screw this up. Most people prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. I think it's that.
Boy, wow, that's a good one. It's why people stay in bad relationships.
Well, God, you could take that anywhere. That quote. Yeah.
I mean, relationship could be with your employer, could be with your spouse, could be with a friend. It's the familiar.
Yeah,
right.
Precisely. And we talk about the comfort zone as actually being a zone of familiarity, not a comfort zone, because nobody's comfortable in there.
Yeah.
It is just the familiar, and we don't like unfamiliar, which of course is one of the big caveats. Another thing I didn't mention really is I look for entrepreneurs who embrace uncertainty or are prepared to be coached in that, so that they start to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. All world-class people are uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge thing for entrepreneurs to embrace. Understand that if you have certainty and conviction, well, not Americans will use the term certainty because it's on a scale, the way that you guys use it. In the UK, certainly with British English, we talk about conviction as being, because that's probably a harder thing to kind of pin down for us. Certainty, you can never quite be certain of anything, I would say, except maybe the love of your kids. But conviction is just a fusion of clarity and confidence.
Yeah.
And if you can get conviction in yourself to negotiate the path, understanding that the path is never certain, then the fear of uncertainty starts to go away.
Yeah.
So for us, it's that.
It's amazing when you embrace something you're afraid of and you just hit it head on. It's easier said than done. One of the simplest examples I can think of is like just reflecting on the childhood, playing volleyball for the first time. I did not want that ball to come to me.
Right.
And the more I wish it did not come to me, someone serves it over, it's coming 100 miles per hour. And more you don't want it, the more it seems like it's coming to you.
Yeah.
And the more it smashes you. But what I realized, and this was as a teenager, when I welcomed it, I said, bring it on, bring it on. I didn't hit every ball over, but it's when you're offensive and you're going for it, it seems like good things happen. You start returning the ball and you're able to receive it and such. And this now moving into the present time, it actually reminds me of this is probably one of the funniest interview clips ever with the NVIDIA CEO, where a bunch of Stanford students were asking, hey, what life advice and what business advice can you give? And he talks about how the role of suffering and the need to embrace suffering and how that makes you, that really tests your character and that shows how strong you are. And you need to embrace it. You need to welcome it.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, he said to all the students, I wish suffering and hard times upon all of you. And that just made the room, half of it laughed, half of it just went silent. They didn't know how to take that. But I think anyone who's an entrepreneur and who's been through those ups and downs would understand, like, it's going to come no matter what. You might as well welcome it.
Yeah, that's a great story and a great point. Von Goethe said, challenge, we grow through challenge. Yeah. Talents are best nurtured in solitude. Character is formed in the stormy billows of the world. We grow through challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm 100% behind that. And yeah, I mean, you don't wish ill on anybody, but at the end of the day, if you don't get challenged and if you don't have hard times, you don't grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of a challenge and hard times, you went through a few things recently.
My God. Yeah. Very recent. Yeah. 5.5 weeks ago, pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it really tested that philosophy. You want to talk about that? Like, you had some health challenges that we were just talking about.
I did. For somebody who's never ill, I mean, to the degree where a former girlfriend of mine said I had alien DNA. Yeah. Literally no flus, no colds, no sniffles, pretty much all my life. I had playing rugby, I had some broken bones, but other than that, never been in hospital, never been under the knife. I'm 63 now. And 6 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, I popped into a cardiologist for a routine checkup to get a referral, actually, as well for a test, because we'd spotted a couple of things in a blood test that we wanted to look at, because I check my bloods on a regular basis. I was in Poland because I have a place over there. I'm on their health system. Great place to go, by the way. The cardiologist was asking me why I'd asked for the particular test that I'd asked for, and I explained to him. And he said, well, tell you what, let's have a quick look at you. Hop on the bike. Let's do an ECG stress test. So he did that, got the printouts, looked at it, and his face went white. Now, I had no symptoms, like none. I mean, other than a little bit of shortness of breath, and my quads were getting a little bit tired, probably a little bit earlier. So I thought that was just a fitness thing. And he said, I've seen thousands of tests like this. You need to be in hospital now. You should have unstable angina. And I'm like freaking out. And my girlfriend was next to me and she went white. I'm like, okay, can you explain? And he said, okay, here's what I think's going on. Tell you what, hop on the bed. Let's do an ultrasound. So he did. And he said, right, there's lesions here. I think probably at least one of your arteries is completely blocked. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to write you a referral. You need to get to the hospital. Here's a hospital you should go to. A couple, but I recommend this one. I was sat with it, had a good chat with him, talked to Barbara, my girlfriend, and we went, okay, all our plans, because we were on a 3-week tour of 5 cities in Poland, stopped. That was our first city. So that all stopped. And I got my gear together and I went to hospital prepared to stay over. They took me in. Following day, I got a coronary angiogram, and the heart surgeon said in Polish, more or less, stents for you, Sonny Jim. So, the things that just allow you to kind of get out of hospital quickly.
Yep.
Well, look at this. So I craned my neck over, had a look at the screen, and there it was. What they call an amputated artery. Basically, nothing was going into the heart from the artery.
Wow.
No symptoms. And the second one at 98% occluded or blocked. And he said, there's a few lesions and stuff. He said, we probably need to put 7 stents into you to get you operational. And he said, you'll be back in 3 months. 3 months. It's a waste of time. So I'm going to recommend a coronary bypass and the full Rolls Royce thing for a quadruple bypass. So I had to process that on the Tuesday, was in front of the medical team on the Thursday. Phenomenal experience. 45 minutes, 26 people, head of heart surgery, professor from a university hospital, the whole thing. They were phenomenal. Took me through everything, answered all the questions, made a decision. Yeah, okay, I'm going to do this. The following Monday, so a week after being admitted, I was under the knife. And they did a hell of an operation on me.
Yeah.
So from never being ill, never being under the knife, suddenly I've got a quadruple bypass.
Wow.
But yeah, here I am 5.5 weeks later after the operation. in my view, is right as rain. Yeah, the sternum is going to take a year to heal. But
Yeah, I would not even know that you went through a major
yeah,
surgery like
absolutely
that.
fine.
Like a lot of people who've been through that type of surgery
Yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
we're doing a podcast together, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's-
I'm back in the UK because they signed me off after 2 weeks to fly.
yeah,
Was signed off by the physio, who's a specialized physio for this, on Wednesday to drive. Everything's moving at a really good pace. I have to actually stop myself and go, okay, remember that you are, there's still stuff going on, and there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of issues, and also a very weak, effectively, rib cage and sternum, because that's still
yeah,
mending, and
yeah,
it's going to take a while. So just take it easy, because
yeah,
there's a big temptation to just do stuff.
yeah,
So I'm taking it easy. But
yeah.
I think we were talking before the podcast about the role of luck in all of this, because the other thing I see in and probably it's a big one to go back to one of your big questions about what does it take for somebody to change. The absence in most people, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way or a denigrating way in any way, shape, or form for people who are stuck in this place, but there's the absence of taking personal responsibility for their lives and for what happens to them. We all understand this as entrepreneurs steeped in personal development and leadership, but the average person, frankly, doesn't take personal responsibility for what happens to them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the first biggest spark for change is just going, okay, personal, what we call internal accountability or personal responsibility. Become internally accountable to yourself for what happens, and then everything changes for you. So for me, understanding that there is a role that luck has to play, but that you, to a large extent, make your own luck. So
Mm-hmm.
making certain decisions and having the sliding door moments that allow you to be in a place where Poland's number one heart surgeon operates on you, which I got, being in a place where you're in one of the best cardiac units in Europe, which happened, you kind of rig the game or stack the deck in your favor, and probably good things are going to happen, and the universe is going to smile on you. But
Mm-hmm.
it starts with by going, okay, this is a situation. I need to make some decisions about this. I'm not leaving it to fate.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens, happens. So if that makes sense, that was
Yeah,
the approach that I applied to this, which was to submit to a process once I was happy the process worked.
yeah. And thank you for sharing that story. That's very powerful,
Mm.
and it seems like you've been preparing all your life for that too. In many ways, we've talked a lot about this here, but I also impart this on people around me, like
Mm.
especially my children. Is things don't just happen to you. Like it could be as simple as, oh, this is happening at my workplace, and this person's doing this, and they're bullied, blah blah blah. It comes down to, okay, so what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
Is
precisely.
Are you going to let things just keep happening to you, or are you going to take some responsibility here and do something about it?
Yeah,
I like to simplify it even more. Work the problem, not the emotions.
yeah.
So
It's a great way
get
of
over the
putting it.
emotions.
Yeah,
It's always going to be there. What's the problem that needs to be worked on?
yeah.
And it's that personal responsibility. But that's a very I find that fascinating because I think more
Mm.
people need to hear about this. Like, obviously there's individual differences, but you're 5 weeks later after a quadruple bypass, you're up and running
Yeah,
right now. You're on a podcast. We've been talking
yeah.
for almost half an hour now. And, I think that was a glass of water, or that was in a beer
Oh,
mug though.
that's my tankard of water. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's a good beer mug.
yeah.
Changes purposes at 5 o'clock. Right. So
Yeah. Wish that's something. Unfortunately, I can't go back to for a long time. Yeah,
I'm teasing
yeah.
you now.
I know.
That's in a bad way.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
just picking up on the things happen to you. I heard a great reframe of that from an old mentor of mine, Jim Rohn. So I was very blessed to have been trained by Jim for over a period of about 2.5 years directly. I miss him daily. He's a phenomenal man. Jim talked about instead of he was very big on simplicity and reframes. And instead of what happens to it happens to you, it happens for you. So again, we go back to if we reframe it and think, well, it's happening for me. What's the opportunity here? Because it's happened for me, not to me. Then you begin to think about things very differently. And I thought it was a genius reframe.
Yeah. There's a role that good mentors around you
Mm.
and being around people who have similar mindsets, there's a role that plays in life too. And there's that saying, like, show me the 5 people around you and I show you who you are, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not exactly true,
Yeah,
but
it isn't, but yeah.
yeah,
Actually, it's
but
one of the ones that Jim is credited with saying, but he was
yeah,
really on about income was his big thing there mainly.
yeah. But the point is that, when I know personally, like when I'm going through things where it's, a situation, whether it's at home or at work, one of the things I reflect on is, and I'll reflect on, well, this person in my life who I saw as a good mentor,
Hmm.
what would they have done in this situation? Oh, this person now, this is another type of situation. What would this person do? And I have that stable of individuals that I've seen in my life. I've had the privilege of, crossing paths with,
Hmm.
where it's almost like a mental coach, where I would say, what would Dino do in this situation? Okay, this is probably how I need to handle it at the same time.
Hmm.
So I guess a question to you is, like, what's been the role of mentors in your life? Like, you mentioned
Hmm.
a couple there already, and
Yeah.
how do they influence your thinking today?
Hmm. It's a deep question. Well, I'd class Simon, the other half of the business, as one of those. I think he is a world class coach, and of course, because we work with Olympians and world class people, we understand the term world class, which I think also is thrown around and bandied
Yeah,
around by a lot of people who don't really understand what world
yeah.
class means.
Would you be interested in this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Simon would be very happy to come on and chat to you. So
Yeah.
happy to hook you up. So I think, and leadership's his big thing. Yeah, it's a huge thing for Simon. So it would fit nicely. Actually, his last book was called How to Hire Great People. Yeah, so
Okay.
probably worth a chat. Yeah, I lost my train of thought there. What was I talking about?
The role of mentors.
Mentors,
And
yes, of course. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, so for me, and yeah, as I said, I include Simon in that. It's just about shaking up my thinking. I'm very, very big on thinking, on thinking time, on reflection, on critical
Mm,
thinking as a skill, developing that and helping other people develop that because most people don't think. It is hard. And it's
mm,
probably the hardest thing we do in business. Business is an intellectual sport. And the way
yeah.
you win is by thinking better and outthinking your competition and outthinking yourself, pretty much. And,
Mhm.
and the problem. So, in my view, so it allows you to get ahead of things. So, what mentors have brought to me generally is perspective, different ways of looking at things, so that I get clarity, which is the big
Mm,
word, I think.
yeah.
And then we go into what we call the three C's: clarity, conviction, and collapsing time. Most people start by collapsing time, and this was knocked out of me by one of my mentors from years ago. And he said this. He said, everybody does this, does it in reverse. Humans do these things in reverse. And business owners certainly. They want to go fast, 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 fast. So they try and compress or collapse time when they don't have clarity. So start by getting clarity, then building certainty or conviction in your process and in the path ahead. Then you can turn the jets on and collapse time.
Yeah.
So we have that three C's process, if you like. And I got
Yeah.
that from my mentors. It all started with clarity and reframing and different
Mhm.
perspectives, different ways of looking at things. Coca-Cola have an expression: you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Um,
Mhm.
and again, that was Joe Polish actually who gave me that. One of his guys came up with that. I think originally as you can't read the jar from inside the label from inside the jar.
Yep.
And again, I subscribe to that. So for me, always the value that, and indeed even clients, the value that mentors, coaches, clients bring to me is the ability to help me take a step back and look at something differently and maybe see something that I've been missing.
Yeah. Yeah. A reflective practice, and I've talked with a number of other coaches and leaders on this
Mm,
podcast, was a reflective practice. And the key word is practice. It needs to be practiced.
yeah.
Um, Something that gives you the proverbial body experience, where you're looking outside in
Mm,
at something. That's important. And
yeah.
I've heard a lot of excuses from people. I'm too busy. Okay,
Yeah.
you're too busy to evaluate your own life and make your life better. Okay, that's basically what you just said.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, the role of pain for such individuals too. That it's not until they see a lot of pain in their life, whether it's burnout and whatnot, and
Mm,
that's what forces them to change. So, Dino, two more questions for you.
mm.
One of the questions is, knowing what you know now in your life, if you had to go back to the younger version of Dino, what advice would you give him?
I think certainly before I was 40, so it's young for me. bearing in mind I'm 63 now.
Mm-hmm.
At any point in that, I would have said, well, two things. One is get checked and change your eating habits would have been kind of useful. And kind of the primary one, less tongue in cheek in some respects, I guess, is slow down. Slow the hell down, and start living in the present. It's a great expression because I used to live in the past a lot. Yeah, the past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. Yeah. So just slow down, start focusing on what's happening now. Refer back to the past by all means, and help that guide your way forwards into the future. Get clarity on what makes you happy, what lights you up. Find your purpose by allowing these things to happen so that it emerges, because generally passion and purpose aren't the things that you can seek out in that way. They emerge. So just let that happen from what you do, but start by understanding what lights you up, what makes you happy. What are you, in terms of personal sovereignty, what are you giving away? Again, this is all clarity, by allowing somebody else to put boundaries down for you and not enforcing your own boundaries.
Yeah.
And generally just be at peace with who you are. So those are the kind of things, certainly my much younger self, those are the things that I would have gone back and discussed. I guess it's not a trite one-liner, it's more of a discussion with that young person. Certainly, I think I was at a place where I would have been ready to hear that probably in my late 30s or probably early 40s. Prior to that, same as all the other people you've talked about, too busy being busy, and being that that part of life where you're young and thrusting up and doing all that kind of stuff and just trying to make your mark in the world and build an empire. Yeah, I went through this, and I don't mind sharing this. I'm divorced, not my wife's fault, entirely down to me. Looking back, two beautiful daughters who are in their mid and late 20s now. But back in the day, I was building a multi-million-pound business empire for the kids so that I could take care of them, and I was never home. Common story, doesn't make it right. So I sacrificed time with my kids for something that I thought they needed instead of actually asking them and being present. So it's those sorts of things that you reflect on as you get older and go, okay, what actually matters? What matters most? And it wasn't any of the stuff. It wasn't earning the money. It was being present. It was being with the people that I loved and that loved me, and being if you like, a conduit for joy for myself and for other people. And I didn't really do that very well when I was young. And again, slowing down would have allowed the opportunity for that to surface. But I was just too busy being busy.
Wow. That's a great lesson to anyone listening here. That's a good lesson. It's a common thing, a lesson that many of us have to learn. We're in this rat race. We're inside the jar at the time.
Very much.
We're inside the jar.
Very much.
Last question to you. What's a question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked?
Oh, wow. That's a hell of a question. What lights me up?
What lights you up?
Yeah. Okay. Being good people, progress. And progress, and again, in Jim's words, is the steady progress, is the steady movement towards your goals, your dreams, your ambitions, the things that make you happy, the impact you want to have in the world. So seeing good people, that light bulb moment, a lot of coaches talk about this, where they just go, oh shit, yeah, the thing, and then going and doing the thing and making that tangible progress, not mental progress, towards something that actually is going to change. So yeah, it's great to see somebody doubling their income or making more profit or having a little bit more impact or whatever. But these are seismic shifts I'm talking about with people. When I see that happen, yeah, nothing better. Nothing better.
All right, Dino. Well, that was 40 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
I know. I know you've done a lot of these podcasts, but
yeah,
time flies, right?
Yeah, it does indeed.
All right. Well, Dino, I appreciate you making the time today. And anything else you like to leave with the listeners before we go?
No, if anybody who's listening wants to have a chat, hit me up. I'm an open, accessible guy. Come and have a look at our community. You want to get more of this kind of thinking? Simon and I are very active in it. It's buttons to join. I mean, literally, as in a few dollars. Because we make our money elsewhere, so we want to give back. So come and hit us up. Check out the website. Hit me up. Befriend me on Facebook. I'm more active there than anywhere else.
Successengineers.co, right?
Successengineers.co, and find me, Dino Tartaglia, on Facebook. Come and say hi. Yeah.
Okay. We'll share all your socials after, and
cool.
We'll post this on all the social channels after.
Fantastic.
All right, Dino. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Dave.